5-year-old girl sleeps in park every night. Police officer bursts into tears when he finds out why. The park was eerily quiet as Officer Brian Davis patrolled his usual route. The soft rustle of leaves in the night breeze and the distant hum of traffic were the only sounds breaking the stillness. It was a routine shift, one of countless nights spent ensuring the neighborhood was safe. But tonight would be different. Tonight, something would happen that would stay with him forever. As he rounded a corner, his flashlight beam caught sight of a small figure curled up on a park bench. He paused, squinting to make sense of what he was seeing. A child. Here? At this hour? He approached cautiously, his heart pounding in his chest. The girl couldn't have been more than 5 years old. She was bundled in an oversized hoodie, her small frame barely taking up half the bench. Her tiny arms clutched a threadbare stuffed bunny, its fur matted and worn from what seemed like years of love. Her eyes were closed, her chest rising and falling with the steady rhythm of sleep. Brian knelt down beside her, the beam of his flashlight now pointing to the ground to avoid startling her. "Sweetheart," he said softly, his voice filled with concern. "What are you doing out here all alone?" The girl stirred, blinking up at him with wide, tired eyes. For a moment, she said nothing, as if deciding whether or not to trust the man in the uniform. Finally, she whispered, "I have nowhere else to go." The officer's stomach sank. He had encountered homelessness before. It was, unfortunately, part of the job, but seeing it through the eyes of a child was something else entirely. He gently asked her name, but she shook her head. "Can't tell you," she murmured, hugging the bunny tighter. Brian glanced around the park, looking for any sign of an adult, but it was empty. The girl was completely alone. His mind raced with questions. Where were her parents? How long had she been out here? And most importantly, why? "Okay," he said, keeping his voice calm. "You're not in trouble. I just want to help. Can you tell me anything? Anything at all?" The little girl hesitated, her gaze dropping to the ground. After a long pause, she said something so soft Brian almost didn't catch it. But when the words registered, they hit him like a punch to the gut. His throat tightened and tears welled up in his eyes. He had been trained to handle all kinds of situations, chaos, danger, tragedy. But this was different. This was the kind of heartbreak no amount of training could prepare you for. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "I'm here," he said gently, his voice cracking despite his best efforts. "I'm here, and I promise we'll figure this out together." But as the girl began to open up, the truth behind her situation became clearer and more devastating than he could have ever imagined. What could drive a 5-year-old to sleep in a park every night? What secrets was she holding onto, and why was she so afraid to share them? Brian knew he couldn't leave her there, but he also knew this was only the beginning. As the night stretched on, so did the questions. And the answers. Well, they were about to change everything. Brian carefully guided the little girl to his patrol car, wrapping his jacket around her to shield her from the chilly night air. She walked hesitantly, clutching her stuffed bunny, as if it were the only thing tethering her to safety. He tried not to overwhelm her with questions, but he couldn't help the storm of worry brewing in his mind. Who was she? Why was she out here? And most hauntingly, what had happened to her? He buckled her into the front seat and handed her a bottle of water. "We're just going to talk, okay? No one's going to hurt you," he said gently, watching her sip slowly. She nodded but didn't meet his eyes. Her small voice broke the silence. "My name's Lily," she whispered, her fingers nervously fidgeting with the bunny's floppy ear. "Lily," Ryan repeated, offering a reassuring smile. "That's a beautiful name. Can you tell me where your parents are?" Her expression shifted, and for a moment, Brian thought she might start to cry, but instead, she clenched her jaw and shook her head. "They're gone," she said quietly. Brian's heart ached at her words, but he pushed down his emotions. He needed to stay strong for her. "Gone how?" he asked softly. She hesitated, her lips trembling. "Mommy got sick, really sick," she said, her voice breaking. "She went to sleep and didn't wake up." Brian felt the weight of her words hit him like a wave. He fought back the lump forming in his throat. "I'm so sorry, Lily," he said, his voice low. "What about your dad? Is he around? Her answer came in a near whisper. He left before Mommy got sick. He didn't want us anymore. Brian's grip on the steering wheel tightened, his knuckles turning white. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. The thought of a child being abandoned like this was unbearable. Lily continued, her voice hollow. I stayed in the apartment for a while, but I ran out of food. I didn't know what to do, so I came here. It's quiet, and no one bothers me. Brian felt an overwhelming surge of emotion. Anger at the world for letting this happen, sorrow for the unimaginable pain this little girl had endured, and determination to make things right. He knew he couldn't undo the past, but he could fight to give her a better future. He radioed his station, explaining the situation in careful terms, making sure not to frighten Lily. He assured her she wasn't in trouble and promised they'd find a warm place for her to stay that night. As they drove, Lily started to open up more, sharing small fragments of her story. She talked about how much she missed her mom, how she'd learned to hide when strangers came too close in the park, and how her bunny, Mr. Floppy, was the only thing that made her feel safe. Brian listened intently, his heart breaking with every word. He couldn't understand how such a young child could endure so much and still have the courage to keep going. When they arrived at the station, the officers on duty moved with quiet urgency, working to arrange a safe place for Lily. But Brian knew this was only a temporary fix. Lily needed more than a bed for the night. She needed a home, someone to care for her, and the kind of love she had been so cruelly deprived of. As the hours passed, Brian couldn't stop thinking about her. He tried to focus on his paperwork, but his mind kept drifting back to her tiny frame curled up on that park bench, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and resilience. He had seen a lot during his years on the force, but nothing had affected him quite like this. Meanwhile, Lily sat quietly in the corner of the station, coloring a picture one of the officers had given her. She seemed calm, but Brian could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the weight of a life far too heavy for a child to carry. The social worker arrived just before dawn, her warm smile and kind demeanor putting Lily at ease. But as the woman explained the next steps, Brian felt a knot forming in his stomach. Lily would be placed in temporary foster care while they searched for any surviving relatives. It was the best option they had, but it didn't feel like enough. Brian couldn't shake the feeling that he was meant to do more. He had always believed in doing his duty, in serving and protecting those in need. But this wasn't just another call, this was a child's life. As he watched Lily leave with the social worker, her small hand clutching the woman's, Brian made a silent promise to himself. He didn't know how yet, but he would find a way to ensure Lily never had to sleep on a park bench again. But what Brian didn't know was that the challenges ahead would test him in ways he never imagined. Secrets about Lily's past would come to light, and choices would need to be made. Choices that could change both of their lives forever. And just as he thought the night was over, an unexpected phone call would set everything into motion. As Brian sat in the quiet of his patrol car, the first rays of dawn stretching across the sky, his phone buzzed on the dashboard. He didn't expect much, probably an update from the station about the night's report. But when he glanced at the screen and saw an unknown number, something told him this wasn't routine. Officer Davis speaking, he answered, his voice tired but steady. The voice on the other end was soft, hesitant. Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm a neighbor of Lily's family. Or I was. I heard what happened and needed to call. I didn't know who else to reach out to. Brian sat up straight, his senses sharpening. What do you know about Lily? Sarah's voice cracked as she spoke. Her mother, Maria, was a sweet woman. She worked so hard to give Lily a good life. But when Maria got sick, she didn't tell anyone. I tried to help when I could, dropping off food, checking in, but after a while, they stopped answering the door. I assumed. I didn't know Lily was left all alone. Brian's chest tightened. Did Maria have any other family? Anyone who might take Lily in? Sarah hesitated. There's someone, she said slowly. Maria's sister, Emma. They had a falling out years ago, but I think Emma would want to know about Lily. She lives in a nearby town. I can give you her number. Hope sparked in Brian's chest, though he tempered it with caution. He thanked Sarah and immediately dialed the number she provided. The phone rang several times before a weary voice answered. "Hello. Hi, this is Officer Brian Davis," he began, carefully choosing his words. "I'm calling about your niece, Lily. She's been through a lot, and we believe she needs her family right now." There was a long silence on the other end, and for a moment, Brian thought the call had dropped. But then Emma spoke, her voice trembling. "Lily? Maria's little girl. I didn't know. I didn't even know Maria was gone." Brian explained as much as he could, sharing the details of how Lily had been found and her current situation. By the end of the call, Emma was in tears. "I want to see her," she said firmly. "I'll do whatever it takes." The next few days were a whirlwind. Paperwork had to be filed, home visits scheduled, and Emma's background checked. Throughout it all, Brian stayed in close contact, making sure Lily knew what was happening. When he told her about Emma, her eyes lit up with a mix of curiosity and hope. "Will she love me like Mommy did?" Lily asked one evening, her voice small and unsure. Brian knelt down to her level, his eyes meeting hers. "I think she's going to love you more than anything, Lily. And I think your mom would be so proud of how brave you've been." The day Emma arrived at the station was one Brian would never forget. She stepped through the door with a nervous smile, clutching a photo of Maria and Lily together. When Lily saw her, there was a moment of hesitation. But then Emma knelt down, tears streaming down her face, and held out the photo. "Your mommy gave this to me a long time ago," Emma said, her voice shaking. "She wanted me to keep it safe. She wanted you to know how much she loved you." Lily stared at the photo, then at Emma. Slowly, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around her aunt's neck. "I miss Mommy," she whispered. "I know, sweetheart," Emma said, holding her close. "But you're not alone anymore. I promise." Brian watched the scene unfold, his heart swelling with a mix of relief and gratitude. For the first time in days, he felt like everything was going to be okay. As Emma took Lily home that evening, Brian couldn't help but reflect on the journey they'd all been through. He thought about the small acts of kindness that had brought them here. Sarah making the call, Emma stepping up, and Lily's incredible resilience. It reminded him that even in the darkest moments, there's always a glimmer of light. Driving home, Brian felt a sense of peace he hadn't felt in years. He knew he'd never forget Lily or the night he found her, and as he parked his car and stepped inside his home, he made a silent vow to always look a little closer, listen a little harder, and never take for granted the power of compassion. Because sometimes, it only takes one person to change everything.